Hello everyone and welcome to Life Begins at 20. My name is Mark and today we have the next instalment of Inside the Cube. If you missed the introduction to the series, there will be a card on the screen now and a link in the description below. In this episode we're going to be diving into the fifth of our archetypes, which is known as Spells Matter. We will take a look at what the archetype is, how it works, why it's effective, plus the anchor cards for it and how to support it in your cube. Just before we get into the video, I'd like to thank the sponsors of my cube content, the Mana Base. For those who don't know who they are, they're a website of fellow Magic the Gathering content creators like myself, bringing you content from all formats. Definitely do check them out over at themanabase.com, as I'm sure you'll enjoy what you see. So back to the episode, and I'm really excited to bring you one of the great archetypes in Cube, and hopefully this will give you a better understanding of the archetype itself in Cube construction and even gameplay if you weren't sure about it. So let's get stuck in. The Spells Matter archetype, also known as Spell Slinger or Prowess, is based around playing a high volume of instant and sorcery spells alongside cards that reward you for doing so. Anything from drawing more cards, creating more tokens, or burning your opponent down from casting a counterspell. Sounds pretty good to me. The more recently printed sets from cards onwards have allowed this archetype to really flourish. Prowess is a fantastic mechanic to get the additional benefit for casting spells, but for cards to be great in Cube, they often need to do more than that to survive, especially at higher power levels. Having an additional benefit on top of Prowess when you cast an instant or sorcery spell helps make this archetype very fun to play. Cards like Young Pyromancer, Monastery Mentor and Thing in the Ice show off this really well, and you'll be wanting to cast spells for days. The Spells Matter archetype is extremely versatile, allowing you to create a wide variety of decks every time you draft. This definitely plays into the hand of deck builders, as they can create any of the following deck types: aggro, mid-range, control and even combo. This makes the archetype so much fun to play and support within your cube, and really gives the drafter a lot more creativity when choosing cards to be able to suit their playstyles. If you'd like to play an aggressive Spells Matter deck, you'll be looking at cards like Kiln Fiend, Monastery Swiftspear and Gutter Snipe, alongside lots of burn spells to really hammer home the win as soon as possible. For the mid-range deck, creatures like Charmbreaker Devils, Niblis of Frost and Torrential Gearhulk really help to add additional benefits while utilising disruptive spells against your opponents to grind out the win there. Control decks will be looking for value from Thing in the Ice, Thermo Alchemist and Baral Chief of Compliance, where they can drop them early in the game and gaining lots of value as they go on while casting your counters and burn spells. Last of all, we get to the combo decks. For these you'll be looking at cards where you can have an explosive turn to swing in for that huge attack. Cards like Nivik Cyclops, Wee Dragonauts and Zada Hedon Grinder can really pump out some crazy damage in the right situation. So from this you can see that this archetype has a huge amount of variety and isn't too intrusive into cubes in order to support it. Red and blue are the main colours you'll see with access to the majority of the spells. The other colours have plenty of options too to help support it. For these cards I'll be talking about unpowered and powered cubes for the anchor cards, but will give a larger list of supporting cards that will give options to peasant and pauper cubes too. So for the unpowered and powered players, if you see cards that won't get into your cube, please don't worry, I'm not saying they should all go in at every power level. Like I mentioned a moment ago, the primary colours you'll need for the Spells Matter archetype are blue and red, as these are the colours with access to all the spells and creatures you will need to support it. All 5 colours are able to support this archetype, as they have access to a variety of useful spells and creatures. As for the main anchor cards for this archetype, we have a few cards that will do the job well for us. First up we have Young Pyromancer. This card does everything we could ask for with this archetype and is very strong on its own. With the help of casting lots of spells, it can certainly get out of hand. Gaining yourself 2 1/1 tokens every single time you cast an instant or sorcery is great, and at that cost you can get this out early and gain loads of value from it over the course of the game, while keeping up counter spells to protect it as it creates your little army. Forbid is another anchor card for this archetype. As you'll be in the colour blue, drawing cards shouldn't be an issue, so being able to discard a couple of cards to get this counterspell back is great value, especially in the late game where you can ditch lands and unusable cards to have an answer and often become a soft lock later in the game. Plus, if you end up using spells like Fiery Temper with madness costs, then even better. Up next is Deep Analysis, which is perfect again for this archetype as extra value from this great spell, but having the option to flashback for 1 blue and 3 life for 2 more cards is great. Even discarding this and then playing it from your graveyard allows alternative plays, which in my eyes is extremely useful. Plus, in a perfect situation, getting the extra value from casting it twice for the creatures on the board is even better. Faithless Looting is another great anchor card for the archetype. Not only is it a really strong card itself, with its versatility making it great in a whole manner of decks, but being able to cast it twice here for extra value for our benefiting creatures makes it a great proposition. Plus, looting your deck is always useful. Last of all, we have Chandra, Torch of Defiance. This card is just an all-star for most, if not all, red decks and perfect for what we want to do here. Ramping allows us to cast more spells, exiling the top card allows us to either burn the opponent down with an unuseful spell or land, or use the spell for great effect. Plus, with her ultimate being very much in reach, the opponent won't last long in a spells heavy deck. An all-round perfect planeswalker for us. As for the supporting cards for this archetype, there are plenty to choose from. For the Planeswalkers, we have Ral Zarek, who can do a great job for the Spells Matter archetype. Ral allows us to pin down the opponent and untap a land for even more value and potentially cast another spell, or he deals direct damage to the opponent, while his ultimate is potentially available and will really skew the game in your favour. Moving on to the creatures, we have 4 distinct abilities that will really help the archetype. For the creatures that generate tokens for us when we cast spells, we have Tauran Sky Summoner, Docent of Perfection and Monastery Mentor. Moving on to the creatures that gain additional benefits with our spells, we have Delver of Secrets, who becomes a 3/2 flyer if you reveal an instant or sorcery as the top card. The other transforming card here that really helps us is Thing in the Ice. Casting 4 spells shouldn't be difficult to provide a whelming wave effect, leaving you with a 7/8 in play. Seeker of Insight, Baral Chief of Compliance and Jessian Thief all enable card draw when certain conditions are met from spellcasting, while Nibblist Frost taps down a creature each time one is played. Seeker of the Way, Ojutai Exemplars and Shu Yun, the Silent Tempest, all buff themselves and other creatures with extra abilities when spells are cast, with the Exemplars having multiple options for you, and Soulfire Grandmaster gives spells lifelink while also enabling you to have a buyback cost on each one. Then we have the creatures that deal more damage the more spells we cast. First up we have Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, who's able to deal some significant damage before flipping over into a Planeswalker form. Gutter Snipe, Weaver of Lightning, Gelectrode and Thermo Alchemist all deal more direct damage when a spell is cast. Charmbreaker Devils gives us back an instant and sorcery from the graveyard each turn, which is fantastic, plus grows in size each time a spell is cast. Like Monastery Swiftspear, Pyre Hound, Kiln Fiend, Stormchaser Mage, Spellheart Chimera, Enigma Drake, Mercurial Geists, Nivik Cyclops and Wee Dragonauts. Then we have the creatures like Bedlam Revelers and Cryptic Serpent that become cheaper to cast the more instant and sorceries that are in our graveyard. Can definitely see these coming down mid-game for 4 to 5 off the cost. Lastly, we have the creatures who are able to affect the spells we play or cast a spell for free when they enter the battlefield, in the form of Goblin Dark Dwellers, Dualcaster Mage, Torrential Gearhulk, Bloodbraid Elf and Shardless Agent all cast another for free, with Cascade being a very useful mechanic in this type of deck, especially for combo. Snapcaster Mage gives us the option of having a spell in the graveyard gain flashback, which can be very useful in the right situation, while Augur of Bolas allows us to draw a free instant or sorcery spell from the top 3 cards of our library, and Abbot of the Carol Keep allows us to cast the top card of our library the turn he comes in. Zada Hedon Grinder and Mirrorwing Dragon affect the buff spells we cast on creatures, allowing it to affect all of them. This can create some really explosive combat steps. Goblin Electromancer and Curious Homunculus also help by making the spells we cast cheaper. Now I'm not going to name all of the spells that are relevant to this archetype, as there are so many that could have a benefit, including ramp, burn and counter spells. The spells that I'm going to mention here make the most of casting instant and sorceries like our creatures do, so we have cards like Metallurgic Summonings, Myth Realised, Epic Experiment, Jeskai Ascendancy, Demonic Dread, Bituminous Blast, Past in Flames, Capsize, Stagger Shock, Reverberate, Jace's Sanctum, Exquisite Firecraft and Psychic Rebuttal. Last of all, we have the artifacts that make the most of our spells too, with Isotron Scepter being a great card in this archetype. Being able to cast the imprinted card multiple times during a game is so useful. A counterspell for 2 generic mana or a lightning bolt on demand is great, potentially even stronger if you can find a way to untap it. Then we have Dynavolt Tower and Shrine of Burning Rage, which allows us to deal extra damage the more spells that we end up casting, and lastly a great piece of equipment in the form of Runechanter's Pike. There are obviously more cards in Magic that can do what we need in each of these card types, but these are a good selection of some of the newer and most commonly found in cubes. As you may have seen already in previous episodes, this archetype cross-pollinates well with another archetype looking for similar cards, plus a few others. As we mentioned in an earlier episode, Burn really does make use of the red damage spells, with the likes of Gutter Snipe, Monastery Swiftspear and Chandra Torch of Defiance amongst others making a huge impact. A fair few of these cards create tokens from casting their spells, like Talrand and Young Pyromancer, which would all help them into a tokens build, especially utilising a card like Opposition to really control the game. Storm is another archetype that can make a lot of use after casting a lot of spells on the same turn. A small example would be casting Lightning Bolt, followed by Chain Lightning, then Seething Song, followed by Faithless Looting, and then lastly Empty the Warrens, netting you 10 Goblin tokens. You can't really complain about that. So in summary, this handy table will be a rough guide to what we have already talked about in this video. Feel free to pause the video and use it as a handy reference for how to support the archetype in your cubes. There may well be some more cards that will help support this archetype at all power levels in Cube, so feel free to add those in the comments section below for the other viewers to see. I have loved seeing this archetype develop in cubes, and it's really fun to play and can often be very rewarding. If you like the challenge of playing around your opponent and flinging plenty of spells at them and getting rewarded for doing so, then this is definitely something for you. If this is something you like the look of and haven't supported it yet, it's really straightforward to incorporate into your cube and add another dimension to your gameplay. In the next episode of Inside the Cube, we are going to take a look at a somewhat Marmite archetype in cubes in the form of the Kiki Twin combo, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'd like to again thank the Mana Base for sponsoring this video and adding me to their list of great content creators. Definitely do check them out at themanabase.com, as all of your format needs will be covered from Pauper to Limited and Cube. Definitely do check them out. I would just like to take this moment to thank my Patreons of the channel. I can't thank you enough for the help and support that you're giving me. If you'd like to do the same, head over to patreon.com/lifebegins@20, and there'll be a link in the description below for that as well, where there are plenty of rewards to choose from. With your support, we can really push to make this channel even better. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, share it, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Don't forget to hit that notification button to know when each video is uploaded. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.